That's probably good for now, and we can get started. So thank you all for joining. We expect to be a little bit more of a conversation than our last calls. So we hope that you have some feedback or questions for us, and feel free to ask away, particularly with the Amber testnet, anything that you've experienced, stuff that you've noticed. And we also have some slides to prime you with specific questions that we have, but definitely feel free to ask us as well. So just getting started with the timeline update. So we've launched Amber. It's running, relatively stable, I would say. Just a couple of things that we've experienced so far that we'll go over. Our audit is actually on track to be done by Friday. So we are expecting mainnet to be on track, provided that there's nothing huge that comes out of the audit. So all of that seems to be on track so far. One of the things that we've noticed in particular, and one update that we'd like to give you guys, is around Amber governance. So we have a council set up with 5 members. Our intended members were initially these 5 members of the Centrifuge team. So that's Martin, Lucas, Ved, Miguel, and myself. And 4 out of those 5 members are no longer part of the council, and it's still unclear to us why this happened. So that's still something that we're digging into, but nevertheless, we passed 2 referenda so far to expand the validator set. And I know this was maybe an experience that caused a little bit of friction, so wanting to open up to everyone on the call to provide any feedback that you had on that experience.
I think one question might be, how do other test nets in your experience expand their validator sets if they start? Because there's a kind of security trade-off, right? We would like to have as many validators in from the beginning as possible, but having empty slots is a bit risky. Maybe someone here in this conversation has some thoughts on that. I take that as a no. Then I think we can move on.
Okay, cool. So moving into general feedback and questions that you might have. So we noticed at least one bug that occurred, getting kicked out of the validator set without being slashed. And I've linked the issue here. Philip, I don't know if you want to go into any more details on that one.
I mean, it's an issue that happened on Kusama as well. So sometimes validators get kicked out and it seems they lose all of their nominations. I think the hypothesis is that sometimes heartbeats are sent, but they are included in a block and not broadcast. And that block is kind of orphaned, or it's a fork that's not in the canonical chain. I think that's a theory. The issue is still open and not resolved, but we are monitoring this, and we'll upgrade our runtime as soon as there's a solution for this. If anyone here has more thoughts on this, please share that with us. That would be helpful.
Have we seen this at all in Amber?
So there was, on Amber, I think we have not. Cassidy, do you remember, did that happen on Amber?
I don't think it happened on Amber. It looked like it might have happened on Flint, but then we actually saw that there was a slash that happened. So I'm actually not sure if this has happened yet to anyone.
So for some background on why we are unsure about this, on Amber we have Polka Scan, which is really useful for quickly looking through events that happened and filtering by module. So you can you can see whether someone got slashed or get kicked out of the validator set. In Flint, we don't have Polka scan set up, so it's a bit hard, or at least cumbersome, for us to dive into debugging these things, and that's why the response time in getting some insights is a bit slow at the moment. But we know that it's an open issue in Kusama, so we don't spend much resources on trying to resolve this on our own, because Parity is already working on it.
We also just wanted to ask in general if there's any other bugs that you've noticed perhaps that we might have missed.
No, nothing from my end. So far, so good.
Cool.
Cool. Okay. So then moving on to the hardware specifications, we thought it would be nice to ask if you had any specific tips or feedback for new validators that are getting started, or resources that you might recommend.
I think you can collect like from every validator the tips. I don't know, like create a form or document where you can just add something that we use, and then you can just, you know, compile something.
Yeah, I think we're going to publish our documentation soon with a list of resources that we're gathering. And so I guess this is just an open invitation. If you guys have any favorite links or really useful write-ups that you've seen, feel free to send them our way, and we'll include them in our resources section for sure.
Yeah, sure.
Ved, is there something else that you wanted to ask with regards to the hardware?
The only reason why I asked for hardware specifications is mostly because that was one of the reasons why most of the validators got kicked out in Flint. And we haven't seen anything so far in Amber. But if anyone, like, if something like that happens, it helps in knowing that this is the hardware that's working so far, good for a validator. Anything below that might be a problem. That is something I've noticed, but I'm just here to ask if any of the specifications that you guys have faced something similar on Amber. If that's not the case, then I think, yeah, we are good on Amber right now.
Okay, cool. And then Philip, I'll let you take this one on the identity palette.
Sure. So as many of you probably know, there's a identity palette that allows you to add fields to your account on Kusama and also on other testnets running with Substrate. We do not have the identity palette on Centrifuge chain right now. And I just wanted to have a quick raising of hands or opinions from your side, whether that's something you would use and find useful. I've heard from one person so far that they would like us to integrate that, but at the same time, we try to keep complexity low. And if this is something that's highly desired by some validators, then we are considering integrating it.
Yeah, maybe if you can write a +1 in the chat and we can get a quick poll, if that would be something interesting for everyone here.
Guy was the person that brought that up before, and I definitely still think it's really nice to be able to have something on like the polka.js org website where you basically can just recognize validators immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. I think that's already 5 + 1, so it's a very clear 4. Now it's 5.
Cool.
We will put that on our list of open tasks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. One new resource that I wanted to bring up for now was something that Eduardo brought up from LineStake, that he was working on a monitoring and alerting tool, and he wasn't aware of this panic that already exists. And so thought it might be a nice resource if you're not aware of it, and also linked it in our Slack channel for everyone else.
And there's also an API that you can use. I think it's written in Node.js, and you can run that on a server. So you can query an API as opposed to a block, like a node, and communicate via RPC with your node. That might be also really useful. I will add a link to this deck before we send it to you later. It's from the same team.
Cool. So that's pretty much it for our structured questions feedback section. So just wanted to open it up to everyone else here if you had any other specific feedback or questions for us. Cool. That's nice to hear. Yeah, we just, thought this call would be nice to have a sync for everyone, give you a quick update on Amber. Expected it to be pretty short, but definitely feel free to reach out to us asynchronously with anything else. You can also join us tomorrow. We're going to be part of the Web3 Builders webinar. The beginning is just going to be a refresh from me, stuff that you probably already know about Centrifuge, but then Philip is going to go into some more interesting stuff about how we're using the Web3 GANs and what we're building that other teams can actually use. So if you're interested in that, definitely feel free to join. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you, Cassidy.
Thank you.
you.
Yep. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.